all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Cook?
Present.
Mr. D'Andriano?
Here.
Mr. Rogan?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here. I still hear that noise though in the buzz of the light.
Still here?
Yeah.
I'll see how it is. I'll clear it up here.
Okay, well then we're good. Okay, Counselor, could you read the public hearing notice?
I can.
Thank you.
Next the amendment. Just one sec.
That's the only thing I got.
Well, I said I can, but I need a copy. I notice. I did not have one.
You still do not have one?
No, this is the resolution.
Yeah.
Are they in here?
I'll double check to see if I have it.
Yeah.
There we go. Have it, Richard. Nope.
No.
No, I don't.
Oh, this is gonna be good. Where is it on the agenda?
It's under P.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have it in here either, because you took it all out, right?
We have the resolution, but we don't have the public.
All right. Okay, so first on tonight's agenda is a public hearing on local law number 1, chapter 135 streets, which will amend chapter 135. I will call the public hearing open. Does anybody, any member of the public have any questions or comments on the proposed change to the local law? Please find your way up to the mic, and if you give your name for the record. I thought you had some issues.
Yeah, really. All the checks.
Paul was waiting for his opportunity.
All right. Hearing none, I'll ask, call for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion on the reports?
I'd like to make a motion to accept the code compliance report for January, code enforcement for January, dog control officer report for January, and the DCI for January. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Also make a motion to accept the supervisor's report for December 2019. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion on the minutes?
So on the minutes, I'll make a motion that the town board approve the bid opening minutes for the town engineer of January 7th, 2020, the organizational meeting minutes of January 2nd, 2020, town board meeting minutes of January 8th and January 22nd, 2020, respectively. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Somebody like to audit the bills?
I'd like to make a motion to approve abstract number 2 dated both January 23rd and 24th of 2020 in a amount totaling $227,482.53. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, we don't have any budget transfers tonight. That is the exception. Sean, you're up.
Good play, Charles.
Got even with your bud.
Okay. All right, first item, we have a couple of requests from Dennis Mays, our building and maintenance supervisor, and these relate to some parts that he would like to buy in order to be better prepared for emergencies at some of our sewage treatment facilities. So the first is a request to purchase parts for the lift stations, and they are items, there's many of them. They are things like probes and probe holders and heat shrink items and all kinds of items that will assist, check valves and things like that, that would assist to have those parts on hand and not have to buy them when we actually need them, but have them on hand. So that's a total amount for this Usemco lift station parts of $2,568.91. So I'll make the motion, we approve that purchase so we are better prepared for these lift station emergencies. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And likewise, Dennis is also requesting to purchase 2 Thomas air compressors from Granger. And again, these are for use at the lift stations when they are needed to maintain and prime the pumps. And that's a total amount of $821.40. So I'll move that we approve that purchase. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And also from Dennis, a request for the wastewater microfiltration parts. And these are some parts, again, that are requested for having them when we need them. And it is a bunch of pneumatic valves and some items for the maintenance of those wastewater microfiltration. So that is a total amount of $3,873.02 for stocking those parts. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just so everybody's aware, all these parts will be maintained at the maintenance office, inventoried, and they will be documented when they do get put into service so we can track them.
Seems great to have them instead of running around.
Yeah.
I'd like to compliment Dennis on
The details.
doing that inventory proposals. Very good.
Being proactive instead of reactive.
Exactly.
Next item we have is a request from a Patterson resident, Reginald Poe, on Cushman Road, who would like the town to consider a zoning change to allow his 22-acre working farm to be considered an educational facility and facilitate folks staying on the property. And this is something that in the past, I guess you would consider like an Airbnb type usage. So in speaking with the supervisor, it may be more appropriate for the planning board to look at this for potential of inclusion into a B&B type of a use, and possibly looking at other areas around Cushman Road to be included. So for discussion.
I have referred it over to the planning board. They did review it at their last meeting. Unfortunately, Mr. Poe could not be present, nor could he be present here tonight. I was hoping to bring him in. I am reaching out to him by the end of the week to get him on to the next planning board agenda so they can have a further discussion with him. The initial discussion at the planning board meeting was they were not as enthusiastic about the educational component, but saw great value in the bed and breakfast. It wasn't unanimous, but majority felt that, you know, it might be something to consider in that area, considering that, you know, there are other activities going on over in that area, that, you know, it is a very nice farm setting with miniature horses on it, but also that we have the bike path, the rail trail coming in that general area. But
And the outdoor recreation facility too, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yep. But also that they thought it might be something to explore to expand that into the immediate area on Cushman Road. So I'm going to invite Mr. Poe in and we'll have further discussion. And I'm going to try to get him at one of our town board meetings as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Good.
Does it seem like he's comparing his property to maybe a potential like Green Chimneys is?
Well,
Does
he did. He
has
tried
some-
to make the comparison with Green Chimneys. In my opinion, Green Chimneys uses a farm setting for therapeutic value.
Mhm.
He's looking to do it, you know, as a commercial enterprise. He initially was running an Airbnb out there. As everybody knows, we do not permit Airbnbs in the town of Patterson at this time. My personal opinion is that they are problematic. They bring in transient people in our community without a lot of controls. I have stayed at Airbnbs. It was a great experience, but it was in a setting that all the Airbnbs in the community were managed by a single management company. And that becomes difficult when you're talking about doing it town-wide. But, yeah, I don't see this as necessarily an education center. It's nice that he has the ponies out there, it's nice that he has a hobby farm out there, and everybody knows my opinion on farms. If you're raising crops, or you're raising livestock for consumption, or you're raising products that are gonna be sold on the market, I think that's a valuable asset to the community, and it's a legitimate farm. But people who come up here and have animals just to play, that is also a wonderful activity, but should not enjoy the same status as a farmer who's out there slaving in the sun and the cold, just trying to earn a living off the land.
So I just want to ask a question. He does indicate that he wants it considered an educational center, so would that take him off of tax rolls, or?
If we designated it as an educational center and he set up a 501c3 to run the educational center, it would take it off the tax rolls.
Okay.
A lot of ifs, but yes.
That's something I would really be in favor of.
Okay. Next item is we have a request from a resident of Patterson for a consideration of waiver of fees. This is a resident who was cited for having it's a tent garage, correct? Like one of those temporary type garages, but it's been on the property for a very long time, 30 years actually. And in order to rectify the violations, there would be a number of variances that would be needed, so the applications are being made to the zoning board, but with that come a certain number of fees. The total amount of the fees due to the town is $650 plus postage. Gentleman is requesting a waiver of all that. We've had many discussions of recent note that state that in this situation, this is not an applicable thing that the town can waive, that this is not a philanthropic use or a not-for-profit use. And so I don't see that we can fully waive these fees for this gentleman, unless anyone has any other ideas.
Listen, I absolutely agree with you. However, I am of the opinion that this is a tent structure that's been out there since 1990. And it is difficult enough after 30 years of enjoying the use of this, structure on your property to be told that now you need variances. But then to tell you that you need to pay twice what everybody else is gonna pay, I struggle with that. So while I would not consider a waiver of all the fees, I would consider a waiver of the penalty the town imposes on the additional fees due to the longevity of the structure being out there.
So then, and I'm not necessarily in disagreement with that, but I want to ask the question of the board, when is it appropriate for the doubling of the fees? Is it when we feel that somebody, knows better and in spite of that just goes ahead and does what they want and then get caught? Is there some measure? Because I want to make sure it's not being applied arbitrarily or capriciously just based on a time frame. If someone doesn't
I
get
have a
caught for 20
comment.
years or 30 years and therefore it doesn't apply, but if it, I wanted to bring that up for discussion so that, we have some idea of, and I see Don kind of nodding along.
Well, I'm sure that we were aware that it was there for 20 years, and I think that the time to impose the doubling of the fees would have been 20 years ago. So I think at this point, we're collecting the fees that should have been collected maybe 20 years ago. So rather than throw salt in the wound, why don't you just collect the fee?
Well, because the fee is there not just as a fee, it's to compensate for the work that the town has to do. Maybe not from the building inspector, but from the zoning board, who has to probably go out and take a look. They're gonna do a site walk, I would imagine. They're going to review the application and, take an action. So there's certainly time and money, energy expelled by the town. It's not like it's just submitting a piece of paper that we have to sign off of. And then I think people would tend to say, well, that's not a fee, that's taxation if we're charging something like that. But in this case, with the amount of work that has to be done, I agree that the fee is appropriate. It's really whether or not we agree with waiving the doubling of the fees. And I'm just looking for some clarity to make sure that we're not just applying it here and not someplace else.
Well, I think, that hopefully to answer some of your question, is that we don't know if that applicant was aware of the variances needed, et cetera, back 30 years ago. Who knows? We really don't know how this was picked up. Apparently, code enforcement, I would guess, or something.
It was picked up because of an application several houses away who had a similar situation, who, you know, at the zoning board meeting, questioned why he was being brought in, looking, you know, they were requiring him to obtain variances when other people in the neighborhood had not. And so the zoning board then asked the director of code enforcement to investigate and proceed accordingly.
Okay, so again, we don't know if this person knew the requirement back 30 years ago.
Not yet, probably no after the zoning board.
Yeah.
Probably not until it got brought before the zoning board.
In other words, if they go to the zoning board to request the variances, they're going to have to present evidence as to why the place was built, why the structure was built to begin with, and whether they thought they had permission, whether they were told they had permission, and you know, whether the code was in effect at the time, covered it.
Right.
So.
Well, I can answer some of that, having been here and lived through most of
Most
that.
of it,
That
right.
At the time, the issue with canvas-style garages was, you know, it was
No.
not something that was ever enforced. People were putting them up all over town, and the building inspector at the time didn't feel it was necessary to get any sort of permits or meet any sort of setbacks.
I can imagine a homeowner wouldn't think you're thinking it's a temporary type structure, you know, tent type structure, you might not think you would need, you know.
In the answer to some of Sean's questions or statements on it, I'm not familiar with the way the code reads now with regard to the penalty. I mean, I kind of, despite the fact that the town does not have the latitude that we've kind of exhibited in the past as far as waiving fees, it could still be, I think, appropriate circumstances that might be appropriate to build into the code for somewhat similar situations, so that there isn't a, let's say there's less discretion about it, that if certain things are met, then the town board would have the ability to waive something like that, is what I could see.
It would seem that it was clearly the intent of the town board at the time it was adopted to provide a measure that would say it's easier to get the permit now than wait till you get caught, because then you're gonna pay twice. So clearly it was, you know, seemed like it was intended to dissuade people from just arbitrarily, you know, commencing construction, hoping that they don't get caught. But-
The matter gets further complicated if the property's changed hands.
Correct. Yeah.
So because a purchaser then purchases without any notice of violation in there and thinking that it would be okay, so, and I think, you know, kind of the facts of what went on here.
Yeah.
Are there extenuating circumstances that would take it out of the category of charging a double fee?
Okay.
Did this applicant's neighbors, did they pay a doubling of the fee?
They did not.
They did
We
not.
waived their fee. We waived the doubling of their fee.
We did?
Town board did.
How long ago was that?
8 months.
4 weeks. Okay.
It was really one of the issues that started the whole conversation, you know, that Charlie kind of pushed forward about, can we legally waive fees?
Okay. Alrighty, well,
Well, I would say, you know, I would come down on the side of, just let them pay the fee. We don't have to have it doubled. That's just me.
There's no gain here. I think that we had a lot of conversation about, we were being asked to waive fees for, you know, selling trees and making a profit. So I think that, yeah, I agree. If we didn't double the neighbor's fee, I think that this would probably create more havoc than we need to. I agree with not doubling.
Yeah, if you're inclined to do it, and you do it by motion, just let the record show that it's not, it should not in any way be interpreted as the town board approving or deeming the existence of this to have been in compliance. So I don't want to do anything that would tie the zoning board's hands or give rise to a claim that the zoning board must approve.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because if it's based on the fact that it was there all those years, they could say, well, see, it's been there all those years, you have to approve it.
Well, I'm sure the fee
Well,
doubled in all those years
And
anyway.
as the town board acknowledged when it did not ask for the penalty, the town board must have felt that it was.
So, listen, I agree with Don that we should acknowledge that, but just so everybody's clear, you know, we did do a search on the zoning and what was permitted on that lot at the time. At the time, the lot was actually in the NS1 zoning district.
Okay.
The NS1 zoning district at the time that this, you know, supposedly went up, said that you needed to meet the setback requirements for an R40 structure, and it doesn't.
Yeah, okay. So let's see if we can get this worded properly. In the matter of the application made regarding
Wait,
5
wait,
Orchard Street.
Wait, if we could just,
Rich, do you mind if I ask a question?
if you can give us your name first.
My name is Dan Cookta.
Sorry.
That's fine. It seems to me you guys are using the word fee to refer to both a fee and a penalty. And I wasn't clear from the discussion, are you going to be waiving a penalty? Because that seems less of a...
Yes.
Okay, so
So
that's...
thank you for that, because that's a very good point of
Okay.
clarification, because one is a fee and one is a penalty. The penalty is a doubling of the fee. So it's the penalty is the double of the fee, so,
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
if I
Sounds
could
better
just-
if you waive a penalty.
yeah.
That is very good advice.
Thank you.
And if I can just add one more point of clarification, the fees are set pursuant to the zoning code in a fee schedule that the town adopts. The doubling is actually within section 87, which says that we're allowed to charge fees, and in certain instances where people have, you know, done things before they've gotten the permits, that we can double the fees.
Mary actually had a good point. I wonder what the fees were back then.
They weren't
They're probably
the
doubled.
amount they are now.
They're probably
They're doubled
doubled.
now.
Yeah.
What they're gonna be after
So
this
the-
meeting.
They've
Okay.
had the use of that money for all those years.
So in the matter of the application for 5 Orchard Street, Patterson, I will move that the town waive the penalty portion of the fee, in effect, $325 of the $650 amount, minus postage, of course, and recognize that this waiver does not in any way prejudice or give any indication as to the outcome for the Zoning Board of Appeals in their review of this matter, but based on the information presented by the supervisor in support of this waiving of the penalty relating to the number of years that the structure has been here, and the other zoning and extenuating circumstances. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next item is a stormwater agreement that is between the town of Patterson, the town of Kent, and the Patterson Crossing property. And this is essentially for the future maintenance of stormwater practices and just enabling that there's the ability to maintain those stormwater practices in an appropriate manner and plan for any problems that could result. So, and I probably didn't do that justice, but that's the crux of it.
That's the
correct?
crux of it.
All right. And I'd like to introduce this resolution which grants the stormwater management agreement between those parties, Town of Kent, Town of Patterson, and the owners of Patterson Crossing. With the attached, there's a meets and bounds description in the schedule attached, which outlines the property this affects, and authorize the supervisor to sign any execute any documents that would need to be done in order to effectuate this agreement. So I will introduce that as stated. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, I have been in contact, as always, with the principal of the Patterson Crossing project. I don't want anybody to read anything into us moving this forward. This was a requirement that really came out of the town of Kent, that they wanted this done. We're not planning on putting a shovel in the ground anytime soon. So,
Get us all excited.
And the last item I have is relating to the planning department. The board and the audience may recall that we had a recent retirement. Cheryl Smith retired just recently, and this resolution just effectuates a change in personnel, moving from one area of the department to another. So we will like to move the resolution. I'm sorry, and this is within the plan department. This is part of that move, though. That would change Sarah Mays to the civil service eligible list as a clerk and give her the salary as approved in the 2020 adopted budget. So moved.
Second.
so just for a point of clarification, we're restructuring the planning and building departments and moving Sarah Mays to the position of a clerk.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Yours is like a follow-on.
Mine's a follow-up.
Yeah.
So I've got the next resolution where we're, again, slightly changing the titles and restructuring both the planning department and the building department. And I have a resolution that I'd like to introduce and ask that it be entered into the minutes as though read, which appoints Mary Charteau to the position of clerk within the building department. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next on my agenda is a letter of resignation for Veronica Roche. Veronica Roche was a senior rec leader at the Patterson Recreation Center who is moving on to greener pastures. Veronica did an outstanding job while at the Recreation Center, and last year was principally responsible for setting up a whole new lifeguard program and did a phenomenal job doing it, and it was a tremendous success last year. So whoever we put in that position is going to have some big shoes to fill. We wish her well for moving on to greener pastures. She's actually taking a job in the town of Ossining in their recreation department. And the second resignation, just for a point of clarification, we have actually had a resignation on the Putnam Lake Park Advisory Board. There was some confusion about that. Hank Earl has resigned, not only as chairman, but has resigned from the board. So we do have an opening. If anybody wishes to get involved in your community, especially in the Putnam Lake Park area, Putnam Lake Park District area, please send your resume into the town clerk. Okay, town engineer. The town board has met with 4 different very qualified engineering firms. I was very pleased at the response we got to the RFP that was put out. There were 2 firms that really stood out above both of them. And I'm going to make a motion on appointing one of them, and we're going to see how the board feels about it. So I have a resolution here authorizing the appointment of a town engineer that I'd like to move and appoint Renia Engineering as town engineer for 2020. And I'd like to ask that this resolution be entered into the record as though read. Do I have a second?
Happy to second.
Discussion.
This is the farm up in Paul.
This is the firm up in Dover,
Dover.
Dover.
Dover Plains.
Dover.
Okay, yes, it is. Anyone?
Discussion, just simply to say that we were very impressed. Like you said, we had 4 great firms. I think that they meet the needs that we're looking for right now with flexibility, with great staffing, and excited to see what they're going to be able to do to help us in Patterson with our projects and reviews that we need. So fully support this.
Agree. And I think they bring not only engineering, but planning expertise with them, so sounds good.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next on the agenda is server. As you all know, we budgeted last year for a server because one of the servers that we have of the 2 servers running is maxed out in its capacity and is running server 2008, which is no longer supported. So I've been going back and forth with our IT consultant on getting a new server with the proper specs. I've provided the board with all the specs on a potential server. I thought it was a little bit short on the specs that we were given by Dell, and I would like to see both the amount of RAM increase, but also, have a server with 2 processors rather than just a single processor. That would bring the overall cost for the server to $6,400. I'd like to make a motion that the town board approve the expenditure for a network server in that amount. So moved.
Second with a comment?
Discussion.
Discussion?
Yeah.
I guess that we will look forward to a budget transfer on this.
Unfortunately, we will be looking at a budget transfer.
We look forward to seeing that.
Yes, we will. We had originally budgeted $5,000 based on discussions I had with our IT consultant last year, and that included installation. And when we went to initially purchase the server, the price of the server that we received from Dell was a little over 10 grand. So we definitely under budgeted for it. However, I have been, I've done a complete inventory on the computers to make sure my inventory is correct, and looked at the operating systems. And one of the drivers in all this is trying to get all our computers up to speed as far as the new operating systems, because we are still running several computers with Windows 7. We need to get them up to Windows 10. And I think I may have a plan to get them all into Windows 10 this year without breaking the bank. So hopefully that'll pan out. All right. I did not. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for keeping me on my toes. All right, last on my agenda is the Board of Assessment Review. It was recently brought to my attention that, well, let's back up a little bit. Every year at the organizational meeting, the beginning of January, we appoint various individuals to our various boards for a term generally starting January 1st and running to December 31st for various terms, 5 years, 7 years, whatever it is. In the case of the Board of Assessment Review, that was a 5-year term, again, running from January to December. It was recently brought to my attention that real property tax law actually requires that we appoint our members of the Board of Assessment Review for a term of commencing on October 1st and running to September 30th. So we are out of sync with what the state requirements are. So working with our attorney and discussing the issue, we've come up with a resolution, which essentially what we're doing is we are extending all the members, current sitting members of the Board of Assessment Review out for an additional 9 months so that we end up being in compliance with state law. And we are still looking for a Board of Assessment Review member.
One vacancy.
So we do have a resolution doing that. The resolution extends the terms of Bridget Pasco until September 30th, 2021, Lynn Andretta to September 30th, 2023, Patricia McElroy till September 30th, 2024, Christina Rizzo to September 2025. And without objection, I'll make a motion that we introduce, or I'll introduce this resolution and ask that it be entered into the minutes as though read. Can I get a second?
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And that is it for the moment.
Okay, so Irma, I have 2 contracts here for requests for a bid for the seasonal lawn maintenance and landscaping. Being very optimistic, asking for us to approve the advertisement for these? Is that what we're looking for?
We are looking to authorize the town clerk to advertise for bids.
Advertise for bids. One for the town of Patterson, seasonal lawn maintenance and landscaping, the other one for the Putnam Lake Park District, seasonal lawn maintenance and landscaping. Proposals are due by March 9th, 2020. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I know, it's very hot in here, I'm getting it too. Okay, second item on my bid is, on my agenda is a resolution for the town of Patterson to have professional services contract with Munistat, am I saying that right? Munistat Services Incorporated for municipal finance advisory services. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this resolution and enter it into the record as though read for the purpose of continuing to seek and have professional advice to the town concerning the planning and implementation of capital financing for the town of Patterson. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, campus at Fields Corner. So, I guess there was a proposal here for the town of Southeast to do a property swap. Their property is located on, it's 94.9 acres of property located on Star Ridge Road, and the applicant seeks to convey the Star Ridge Road site to the town in exchange for 81.72 acres of property owned by the town on Pugsley Road. So we have an interest in that. I would say that we probably are opposed to this taking place because it's going to affect the side of Fields Corner, and it's going to impact our town negatively as far as the traffic goes. So this is just basically open for discussion to comment, or I believe, Mr. Williams, you're going to the board meeting tomorrow in Southeast?
I am meeting with representatives with Mr. Rossi, myself, and representatives of the town of Southeast, yes, to discuss not only this, but campus at Fields Corners. Anybody have any questions or comments or thoughts or?
So this just puts potentially more traffic on Pugsley and Fields Corner.
Correct. It will add to the traffic out there significantly, and what I find a little bit disingenuous on everybody's part is they're basically saying, we have no idea what we're doing, so there's not gonna be any impact, so we're just gonna move it forward. And then later on, we're absolutely committed to doing an environmental impact statement, even though there's not gonna be any impact. So,
It does talk about developing the property for active recreation.
yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They've got a proposal for a large commercial recreation facility with a structure. But in proceeding forward with the alienation of parkland, you know, they're saying, we're just gonna neg deck it, we're gonna go to the state, we're gonna transfer title, and we're gonna figure it out later because we really don't know what we're doing right now. Mrs. Russo?
Oh, that's,
Yeah, if you'd like to go to the mic and if you have anything you'd like to add. Just if you could give your name and address.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen, ladies. My name's Alicia Russo. I live on 102 Fields Corner Road. I'd actually make comment on both projects because I think Southeast has been misrepresentative of the whole thing. First off, they've been sneaky that they didn't share with their neighbors exactly what was going on, beginning with the Fields campus. Rich has been wonderful with communicating with me with what he knows, and when I first called Patterson to ask, hey, what's going on? I heard there's big warehouses going in. They already started clearing trees. Patterson had no knowledge of this. When I spoke with Tony Hay, their feeling was, well, it wasn't going to impact Patterson, but yet the study was 512 18-wheelers coming down to the facility and 750 employees on 3 shifts for a 24-hour period. So that was the first problem where they're saying it's not going to impact us. After 14 years of them closing that road because they didn't want to have to maintain it because of the traffic. As far as this new venture, they allegedly found out about it 10 days ago and decided to put it on the forum. And it was a fluke that, because I signed up, that I happened to see that they're talking about Pugsley. And I did comment to them when I went to their board meeting, you keep referring to it as Pugsley, but yet the facility they're referring to for the sports is on Fields Corner Road. It is not on Pugsley. In addition to that, the swapping of the 2 properties, they're 2 different properties. And whether it was Southeast or Patterson, there are so many animals back there, and the beauty of it, to want to rip down all those fields for a sports complex and, you know, umpteen numbers of baseball fields, it's a shame. There's deer, there's lynx, there's coyote, there's bear, and it's something that makes a part of our community, why people want to move up here to still maintain the open space. So the alienation of the swap, I understand Star Ridge is not comparable to that. But in the same turn, okay, that's Southeast business, but this is directly related to Patterson. Whatever goes on there is our traffic on our road. Patterson does a wonderful job of maintaining the road, and thank goodness we're at a minimal cost. We're a dirt road. We're small in nature, and to increase and expect us to have to pay for it. As a matter of fact, the court said to me, well, what are you going to do when we pave up to the Patterson line? Then you guys are stuck with the dirt road.
Just point of clarification, Tom LaPerche.
That's the name, yes, Tom LaPerche, because I did approach him on Monday night saying, why do you expect us to pay for what you're going to be putting through there? So this is going to be a hardship on Patterson because people are going to be cutting through there, and we're not reaping any benefits of what Southeast is getting. They should close the road. I proposed 14 years ago to Southeast that they close the road because they didn't want to maintain it, but yet they want Patterson to have to deal with their error with not providing knowledge it's closed and cleaning up the mess. I think I covered everything.
I think so, very well.
Yeah, it brings up a thought to me about with this not proposed sports complex, if you will. There was the same thing on Route 22 there a number of years ago, across from M&T Bank, Burger
Dome.
King,
Oh, the golf dome.
whatever. I mean, there's all that property there, right? I mean, they could put a sports complex up there. They had it for golf, and they had it for batting cages type thing. You turn that up and say, what? And that's been sitting vacant for God knows how long.
Sure.
I can also comment, Alicia Russo again. It was brought up that just right over on Tammany Hall, there is a sports field that no one uses. It's sitting there. I've passed through there at least once a week, and very rarely do I see sports teams going on. And when I did try to walk, you know, I like to walk, they told me that I couldn't because I wasn't part of Southeast, and that was just for Southeast. But yet at the meeting, they said, no, this is for everybody, and that was for everybody. So I don't know why you need another baseball field within a mile in Southeast. They're both Southeast areas, so.
Right, and I believe only the school is using that now because they're redoing the fields at the Brewster schools.
Is
It's
that
the only
it?
reason why they'll use that. They do not have games there.
Are they proposing sports fields, or they, is it I mean, it's pretty much says active recreation, that could be,
Yeah, they're being a little cagey about it. My understanding is going to be a building with indoor recreational uses as well as outdoor sports fields.
my girls, I mean, I love to have stuff like that around. My girls play sports, and but they do, and knowing how, dropping them off and driving them to these facilities. I know the Brewster Sports Arena closed, and just the traffic is crazy. So, you know, it's hard to get in and out. You're going through residential areas to get to it, and you know, another thing too, real quick, is also the traffic to the facility too. But if that road opens, Fields Corners opens to Pugsley, so if you have a direct route from Fair Street to 312, you're going to add even traffic, cut through traffic. You're going to increase traffic, just people just cutting through to, you know, to get over to 84 or get over to Home Depot or whatever. So those are my concerns.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, Pete, because that's like the second failure, if you will, commercial-wise, with the Brewster Sports Center.
Yes.
I mean, that was popular forever. And again, that's closed down. The one I mentioned earlier, on Route 22, closes down. And now they want to go for a third, where they have these properties that they could use.
Yeah.
Hi, Dan Cook. I'd just like to ask a question for clarification, because I didn't actually understand the deal. What I thought I heard was trade land on Star Ridge Road for land on Pugsley. And
There's land down near Cobb Road, fairly large
That's-
parcel
but
of land.
that's
that is-
nowhere near the town borders, right? That's like deep within town of Southeast, right?
It is.
Well, it's heading towards the North Salem side of
Right.
Southeast versus the Patterson side of Southeast.
So am I understanding this right? The town, a parcel that's like, almost like an island, separate from the town of Patterson, would then be in the town of Patterson? Is that?
No,
the-
no, no, no.
What is,
This
what's
is-
the,
This
what's
is on the border.
the meaning of the swap then?
So, on the border of Patterson, off of Fields Corners Road, the town of Southeast owns, I think, about 156 acres. And it is dedicated parkland. What they are proposing to do is eliminate that dedication of parkland so that they could swap that land for other lands owned by a private entity
Oh,
called
oh,
Pearl
okay, so
Spring.
all they want to do is it's like they just want to change the designation of parkland within the town of Southeast to another parcel within the town of Southeast. Okay, I totally misunderstood that.
Yeah.
I thought we were like gaining a parcel in Southeast and they
No, no,
were
no.
changing the boundary of the town or something. Oh, so then, yeah, I'm not sure why.
So the issue is this, Dan, to be clear. Fields Corners Road is currently a dirt road.
Right.
It is not 24 feet wide. In some points of Fields Corners Road, it probably shrinks down to 14, 16 feet. It is very windy with rock outcroppings coming
Mhm.
right out into the road. And through portions of the year, especially in the winter, it becomes even unpassable. So it's been closed off. The town of Southeast has a proposal for Northeast Logistics, AKA Campus at Fields Corners, which it was originally proposed a little over 1 million square feet. It's now down to, what, about 750, 800,000 square feet of distribution facility. It's going to generate a lot of traffic and a lot of tractor trailers. And that's all being directed down towards 312, the intersection of Pugsley Road that's challenged. We don't believe, at least some of us in Patterson don't believe that all that traffic is going to want to go down to 312 and sit there for an extended period of time trying to get out through the intersection back to 84 to come back. They're going to be coming back through Patterson, an unapproved road. So the town of Southeast needs to commit to substantial improvements to Fields Corners Road, i.e. widening it to 24 feet wide, paved, without the restrictions on the road, all the curbs and everything. Or, the easiest solution, put up a crash gate. Stop the road, block it off, so people can't go through. If there's an emergency out there, God forbid emergency services needs to go through, they can still go through the gate. You know, if something happens over on 312 where there's a really horrible accident, we can go open the gate. And people can use that as a safety valve, you know, that's fine. But to have the constant flow of traffic on a road that is really not suitable for that volume of traffic is inappropriate. And what would ultimately happen is if this continues and we do nothing, that over time, the taxpayers of the town of Patterson are gonna have to pay to upgrade that road solely for the benefit of activities going on in the town of Southeast, because they've got their head in the sand.
So help me understand why the town of Patterson is being asked to approve, you called it a land swap, but
We're
it's
not.
really
No.
We're not.
Oh,
We're not. This is all going on in the town of Southeast. The land swap, so the town of
Okay.
Patterson has been actively arguing with the town of Southeast about this one project, campus at Fields Corners, is gonna be a major impact. Out of the blue, a week or so ago, all of a sudden, this whole second project jumps up, which is going to even make the situation worse. So we were already talking about going to Southeast tomorrow to meet with them to see if we could change their mind before this ends up in just a terrible
okay.
legal
All right.
battle.
I get it now.
And-
You can
and now we
voice
have
your
this-
opinion about their pending decision.
Yes.
That's about, okay,
Yeah.
now I understand what you're discussing.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's also adding a lot of volume to Fair Street that can't handle it also.
Oh, yeah.
You have schools over there, and,
Yeah.
by the way, you have a lot of town of Southeast residents opposed to this as well, because they live there on Fair Street. And it's going to affect them.
Yep.
Yep.
And if I could add, Rich, and some to your question, the town gets involved because of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So the town, as an adjoining municipality, is entitled to notice, and essentially what has happened with this proposed land swap is it has to come under review not only by the state legislature, which has to approve the land swap because part of the property is dedicated parkland. It also has to comply with the State Environmental Quality Review Act as far as the impacts. And one of the major questions it raises is that in a quick review of this letter from the applicant's attorney, they are claiming that it should get I don't want to say superficial review, but the town of Southeast should be looking at it as if it is merely a land swap without an end use for the property, which I think is a bit of a stretch. And especially given the interrelationship of the potential development of this piece at the same time or in conjunction with the campus at Fields Corners. So one potential argument that I'm sure we'll be discussing with the town relates to whether the campus at Fields Corner work that has been done has to take into account this potential development. So there are a lot of issues that, what the town's been presented with so far as the submission from the attorney for the applicant is that attorney's overview for the project in a light most favorable to what they want to accomplish. So there's a lot to be discussed in connection with it.
Okay. I think we're gonna move on here.
Okay.
Larry, you got one more?
Yes. So in an effort to move forward on the property at 22 Libel Place, we need to get a new analysis and an appraisal. So I'd like to make a motion to approve an appraisal of the property at 22 Libel in the amount of $300. Going to McCormick? Megan McCormick, is that who's?
Who?
getting
No,
it?
no, no,
No,
no.
I'm sorry.
Bashir's.
Barbara Bashir's.
Barbara Bashir's.
Okay, so, make a motion to approve $300 for the appraisal of 22 Libel Place to Barbara Bashir's. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
If I could just throw in there, just so everybody's aware, the town received 2 appraisals in 2017, and based on those appraisals, we purchased the property. We are looking at potentially a grant of $100,000 that was secured a number of years ago, back in 2017 as well. The state agency administering the grant has asked us to get an updated appraisal, even though we already own the property. So it's the foolishness that we have nowadays coming out of the state capitol. Peter?
Okay, first up on my agenda, I have EMS requests. The first request, I have a memo here from Denise Montana, our EMS supervisor. She received a letter from one of our EMTs, Brendan Froude. He's requesting a leave of absence for 8 months. Brendan, congratulations to Brendan. He got hired by the New York City, I thought it said DEP police, but this one's saying Police Academy, New York City Police Academy.
This one says DEP.
Yeah, it does.
Oh.
Is it possible DEP uses the New York City Police Academy?
No, they have their own
Oh.
academy.
Okay, so
So,
Well,
either way, we're
regardless.
attending Police Academy.
yeah, so he's asking for leave absence for 8 months to attend the police academy and to be able to come back if he's able to. So I'd like to make a motion to accept Brennan's 8 months leave of absence. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Next memo I have from Denise Montana. So we had an EMT, Caitlin Canizaro, who asked for a leave of absence last year, back in June, to complete some education. She has not come back, and she has not shown any interest in coming back, so I'd like to make a motion to terminate her employment with Patterson EMS. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Next EMS request, I have a memo from Denise Montana to renew our Target Solutions. That was the online, the contract for the online training that the EMTs use. It's great because they can take some of the training. If they have some downtime while they're working, they can log onto the computer and get their mandated CMEs. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the amount of $2,377.82 to renew our contract with Target Solutions. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Next, I have senior trips. First trip here, we have the trip to the Culinary Institute with boat ride. Date of the trip is 6/11/2020. The cost for transportation is $4,950. The ticket sales cost to the seniors comes out to $2,750. So the net cost to the budget would be $2,200. Make a motion to approve that $2,200. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Next trip we have is to Mohegan Sun Casino, March 24th. The transportation of the bus will be $1,250.
That includes all the ticket
Oh,
pricing
okay.
too. It's not just transportation, it's, and other things.
So the cost would be $1,250. And then the net cost would be $512, and it looks like possibly 80 cents. So I'd like to approve that for the trip.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. All right, next I have recreation request. Letter from Matt Chabaro. He's requesting that Connor Light be promoted from junior staff member to senior staff member. Connor's been part of the recreation team since 2016, is one of the hardest working and most dedicated staff members I have. So I'd like to make a motion to increase his pay rate to $12.30 per hour and promote him to senior staff. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, last I have, we had our public session for local law number 1, so I have a resolution to adopt local law number 1. I'd like to make a motion to accept it, enter in the minutes as read. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And that is all I have.
Charles?
Next, we have the highway request to advertise for bids. It's an annual process that we do, and so I'll make a motion that the town board authorize the town clerk to advertise bids for the following items to be opened on Wednesday, March 4th at 2 p.m. This wash sand, crushed stone, bituminous concrete, annual tree work, diesel fuel, and heating oil. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have Highways request and recommendation to sell highway truck number 43 in the amount of $2,250. We had a previous buyer, that didn't work out, even though that was a lower amount. So I see we have a full-fledged resolution here. So I'll make a motion that the town board approve the sale of truck number 43 to Mr. Nicholas Leo, and that the resolution for sale be entered into the record as read. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say third time's the charm.
Next, we have a conference request from our assessor to attend conferences down in White Plains for various dates. Question comes to mind that our assessor is also putting in for lunch allowance, which is not permitted.
We're just approving the mileage.
So we're just going to approve the mileage. All right, so I will make a motion that the town board approve the conference request form for down at the Pippo in the amount of $386.76. So
No.
moved.
You have to change the amount, Charlie. It's $266.76.
Oh, you're right. Hey, Cooper. The mileage amount is $266.76. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have a conference request. I thought we did this one, no? Okay. For our Director of Code Enforcement to attend seminars, one-day seminars, February, March, April, May, and the total cost is $210. So I'll make a motion that we approve that conference request. So moved.
Second.
And the $210 is the registration fee.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
What do I have next here? Oh. Fee schedule. Beautiful. All right. We have before us, I will say probably prepared by either the supervisor or the town planner, a number of changes to our fee schedule. We can just approve this, right? We don't have to go through anything else. Okay. So I will make a motion that the town board approve the amended schedule of fees that's before us and enter the resolution affecting these changes into the record as read, along with the attachments for the fees. So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, ice conservation. I get all the fun ones. Ice. Hold on. There's two of them?
There's two of them.
Two of them. How lucky can I get? Let's see, so hold on. Okay. Sorry for the delay. One resolution authorizes the supervisor to execute a conservation easement with Putnam County Land Trust, about the property on, we're at 372 Ice Pond Road. Okay. So I will make a motion that the town board approve this conservation easement and to the resolution into the record as read, and also ask the supervisor, make just a couple of comments on this when it comes time. So moved.
Second.
It's time.
Go.
What are the comments? Oh, you want me to make a couple of comments
Yes.
on this? Oh.
Thank you.
So this is a 26-lot subdivision off of Ice Pond Road, near the intersection of Tommy Thurber Lane. There were two parcels, well, actually, there were about 4 or 5 parcels. Some of them were owned by the Putnam Land Trust, others by a developer. The developer and the land trust worked together so that the areas that were most important are going to be protected as open space, while the areas that were most suitable would be used for the 26-lot subdivision. The lots are about acre and a half each. There's 2 rows involved in this. And, you know, as part of the overall review by the planning board, there were a number of restrictions, the conservation easement to ensure that it stays open space. There's also some very big stormwater practices, which is why we are doing the drainage easement. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have, as aforementioned here, a resolution concerning, again, Ice Pond Estates relative to drainage and stormwater easement and maintenance program. And we have a resolution, and we have the whole declaration in front of us. So I will make a motion that the town board approve the drainage and stormwater easement and maintenance declaration and enter into the record the resolution as read. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I believe that brings us down to other business. Any town board member have any other business they wish to bring up at this time? Okay, I have one quick piece of other business that came in today. Finally, the wastewater treatment plant, the main building where the filtration area is, has a number of ceiling lights, fluorescent ceiling lights. We're down to having out of 15 lights, maybe? Does it give a quantity?
Says 8.
All right, out of 8 lights, I thought there were more. Out of 8 lights, we're down to having 1 on. So we actually started chasing prices when we had 3 on. We're now down to 1. We finally got the pricing squared away. We received 2 prices to change out the lights in the wastewater treatment plant. I'm afraid that if we delay this, I was going to put it on the next agenda that we won't have any lights in there. So I'd like to make a motion to approve Franson Electric to replace 8 high bay LED, or to replace the lights at the wastewater treatment plant with 8 high bay LED lights, 150 watt, for the amount of $3,740. All in favor?
Aye.
Public recognition. Does any member of the public wish to bring up anything before the board? Anyone? Going once? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Hi, Bruce Major, 166 Somerset Drive, Patterson. Just I guess a couple issues. One, I find it interesting earlier that we talked about a piece of property that 30 years ago put up a tent or some type of a garage. Doesn't the assessor visit these properties? I would think the assessor had to visit the property once every 5 or 6 years. When the assessor observes a structure that's not previously listed, do they notify the building department?
In recent years, we've done a really good job, I believe, in starting to coordinate activities between the assessor and the building department. where now there are times when the assessor and the building inspector are going out together. A lot of property in the town of Patterson.
No, I
So
realize, I just
we
think
have
it's a good
way-
practice,
ways to
something they
go.
should be doing.
And honestly, there's a lot of catch-up in this town with things that were permitted by officials within the town back in the 80s and 90s that weren't quite appropriate, that we keep discovering, especially apartments. So, yes, we are doing a better job coordinating. Yes, the assessor does compare notes now with the building department files. So there's a comprehensive review when they're possibly doing a title search, or they're doing a reassessment of a property because there's been a change of ownership. Title searches all have to now be signed off, not only by the building department, but by the assessor's office as well. So,
And even during a refinance,
yes,
we'll do that
yes,
as well, so.
that's true.
Good, because these seem to be coming up a lot, and one would hope that we have some team players together. Back in October, you had a budget hearing, and during that budget hearing, unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. And I was just curious, as it relates to the issue of mapping for cell towers. Was any consideration given to my request, seeing that at previous meetings, certain members of the town board did agree that mapping of cell towers would be a good thing to do?
All right, so to be clear, we do have the cell towers mapped, but what we have not done is move forward with maybe getting an RF consultant in to look at an overall strategy for the town.
Right.
That we have not done.
And, okay, and my question was, as a part of the budget processing, was any money put aside for that consideration?
No, we were focused on the comprehensive plan.
Well, yeah. That's kind of interesting, because that's going to be one of my next things. We will have the 20th anniversary of the 10-year master plan coming up this year, and I hope, I do hope that some members of the town board take the time to maybe actually speak to the people on the planning board, because as you remember, I did provide you with the minutes of what they had to say about it, because I went to just hear from them, and I think it was kind of interesting. So I think, I'm sure you're going to move forward on that. And then, of course,
Bruce, before you continue.
Yeah.
One of the things, the engineering contractor that we just hired tonight, we spoke with them quite a bit, especially the planner, remember the young
Yep.
man? That was one of his areas of interest and expertise, was comprehensive planning. I think he was working with Dover currently
Yeah.
on revamping their master plan, and so that was an additional bonus to,
terrific.
you know, what we were looking for. I just thought you should know.
So we may make it and actually have it completed
Someday.
someday.
course.
Good.
You'll be pleasantly surprised.
The next thing I have, actually, I'm going to give it out. None of you were on the town board back in 2011. So I'm going to leave the mic and just give copies out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are they subpoenas?
No,
Yeah.
I might not want to reach my hand out, right?
that's a long time ago.
Duly served.
Thank you.
What I've done is I've provided you with a background as it relates to the on-site septic system cleanout. And the reason why I'm providing that is that none of you were on the board at the time, and I think it'd be interesting for you to see the history of how the law was created. And the fact that the law was put into effect, it was kind of interesting. The law, when it was passed, had to be backdated. They actually passed it on the 23rd of April with an effective date of, I think, the 13th of April, because it had to be in effect and enforced for May 1st. Okay? Every septic system in the town should have been cleaned out within the first 5 years, which is 2016. Now, we're talking about anniversaries. This May, we will be 4 years past that deadline. So that's why I thought it'd be interesting to give you this, because none of you have really been dealing with it, and I thought it might be helpful. In addition, I took the time I did speak to some other towns. I do know that at least 3 other towns have up and running data systems that seem to be working. And they themselves admitted that they've been late to the game. But this past Monday, I was able to speak to someone at the Highway Department, the new manager over there, who was extremely helpful. Matter of fact, informed me that I've had my septic cleaned twice in that time frame.
The highway department?
No, Health Department.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay? And if you go to the last page, I'd like you to just look at the last page, you'll see the number of cleanouts per town. If you look at the town of Patterson, the number that the health department has is really kind of low compared to some of the other towns. And I'm hoping that the town will take this seriously. I'd also ask you to go to the town website, and if you, let me know, because I am getting old and my eyes are starting to fail me, if you can see any reference to informing the public of their responsibility to have their septic cleaned every 5 years. So all I'm asking you to do is take a look at this information. Maybe hopefully at the next meeting, I'll be able to hear something positive that we're actually moving forward to ensure that compliance of your law from 2011.
It still amazes me, Bruce, that you know the answers and you still come in and raise the questions.
I know.
So I can update you right now. We adopted a law. We were required to adopt a law by New York State DEC that required a pump out and inspection. The towns fought that because we have no jurisdiction over septic systems. Putnam County Health Department was gracious enough to work with us in recognition that they do have jurisdiction over septic systems. The burden of this law got pushed back on the towns, even though we have no real authority over septic systems. But we did adopt a local law which requires a pump out. Everybody had 5 years to meet it. That was a number of years ago. At the end of 5 years, we did, and the way it worked out was the towns were going to adopt a local law. We were going to take care of the enforcement, and the health department was going to create the database and provide it to the town upon request. Well, you know, when we hit the 5 years, we requested the database. And in going through the database, we found a number of inconsistencies between the slips we were collecting and the health department database. And so we took it upon ourselves to redo the database, which we did. That took a little bit of time. And unfortunately, we had somebody in here who was not a full-time town employee, but assisting us in doing that. And when it was all said and done, there were again problems with our database, which forced us to start all over. We're about a third of the way through doing that. I anticipate that by the middle of April, we'll have that effort complete and be able to start issuing notices, friendly notices to property owners about a reminder that you need to have your septic pump and you need to provide that information. I also know that the health department has also taken a look at their database and been working on that. And they are much farther along, and Sean has agreed to provide me with a copy of that database tonight so that we can compare what we have with what the health department has.
In fairness, I'll send it to you tomorrow. But I agreed to send it to you.
Yes. I was going to say that after the meeting, I was going to contact the health department and ask them to do that. Just for a little history too, initially it wasn't the responsibility of the health department, was it? It was soil and water. And if you...
No, it was never soil and water.
Oh, I think it was. If you read the minutes of the meeting, you'll see that it was soil and water who originally was tasked with it, and then it was transferred over to the health department.
Well, so soil and water was very involved in the MS4 program.
And this is under the MS4 program.
And this all started really with the DEC permit for MS4. when I was chair of the Putnam County Coordinating Committee. So, yes, I am very familiar. I wrote the law. I wrote it for all the towns. Yes, and Soil and Water was there. They were on the committee. They were working with the health department and the towns, you know, formulating it, reviewing it, and getting the whole program up and running. But they were never tasked with keeping the database. That was always with the health department. And the enforcement of any failed septic systems always lied with the Putnam County Health Department.
Yeah, and according to one of the representatives of the health department, approximately 1 in 500 of those forms going to the health department is being passed on to the engineers, which means there is something on that form indicating that there may be a deficiency. Okay, so that's a positive thing, and there is a need for them to have a database, and their database right now has approximately 2,500 records for the town of Patterson. And like I had said back in October, my experience with the company that I hired, they sent me both the town copy and my copy, okay? The health department had both my copies, which means the individual responsible for that was sending in his copies every month. So I would think there's a good possibility that the health department records may even have a better listing than the town has. I don't know, but I certainly think they have it in an Excel spreadsheet, I believe, that's what I was told, that the town could very easily use it, and it could be up and running a lot faster. I'm not suggesting go out there and follow, if you'll see, I think it's on page 10, the fee schedules for the fines, I think, you know, I think the word punitive, I mean, we were talking about doubling the fines to $600. If you look at the fines there, they're outrageous. But here again, you know, we're looking at a point in time where every 5 years probably isn't often enough, okay? And here we are at a point in time where we're now 9 years into it, and if the health department only has 2,400, how many septics are there in the town of Patterson? Ballpark.
Well, yeah, but the $64 question on all that is how many people had the septic pump and the haulers never turned the slips in. I know one sitting on this dais. I'm not listed as ever having my septic pumped out.
I hope you saved your receipt.
I have all the paperwork.
Well, I guess I'll have
You know,
to,
that's actually, you're absolutely right. We're certainly looking at, there are some septic contractors that seem to be religious about sending in their receipts. You know, and I'm sure there are some that we could probably see need to do a better job.
but here again, this little fault on the health department, certainly not you because you
No, I
weren't
understand.
overseeing that.
I get it.
One would think if one of those haulers isn't fulfilling his or her responsibility, you suspend their license. And I think you only have to suspend one hauler's license. The word will get out there and they will comply. I believe it's an important program, and I just think we need to start doing it.
Well, and I think, as you mentioned earlier, the education piece is so important because no one, I think, is looking to be punitive to the homeowner in this case, but to simply say it's in your best interest, it's in all of our best interest to maintain your septic system, especially when we heard of all the problems we've had recently with the water quality in Putnam Lake, for instance, with the algal blooms. Failing septic systems certainly don't help that situation. So,
And if you read the minutes from those earlier meetings, the then supervisor describes what some of those septic systems look like and the importance of it. And just to give you another suggestion, in looking at one of the towns, and I spoke to someone in that town, they're really not up to speed.
yeah.
The notices are going out when someone is getting a new mortgage, you know, when the bank comes in and they're sending out those notices. But once a year, they send out to all the homeowners the scheduling for the garbage pickup. In that publication that gets mailed to everyone's home is a reminder about the importance of cleaning out your septic once every 5 years. And like I said, I looked at the town website, and here again, maybe I missed it. I'm not seeing that. I think the town, we talk about advertising, I think the town has to do something to get the message out there. if you can get the message out there, there'll be less need to send out letters and notices of violations. Thank you.
Anyone else? Can I get a,
There's no executive session. I was all of a sudden.
can I get a motion to go into executive session? No? All right, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Is that a motion?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.